Hey guys, tonight we drift into the open Pacific aboard nothing but a wooden canoe and your bare intuition. The stars overhead are unfamiliar, scattered like glinting stones across dark velvet. Your fingers trail in the cool ocean, tracing ripples as they pass, not random, but whispering patterns. Somewhere out there beyond the horizon lies an island. You're expected to find it. No compass, no GPS. Just the sway of the boat and the hush of ancient memory. No pressure, right? It's not even clear how you ended up out here. Maybe you took a wrong turn at a museum. Maybe you joined a heritage voyage because someone said it would help you unplug. Either way, you're now barefoot on woven mats beneath the dome of stars that Polynesians once read like a sacred book. And here's the kicker. You probably won't survive this journey unless you learn to feel your way home, literally. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Thank you. The canoe doesn't creak. It breathes. Every time the swell passes beneath the hull, exhales with a sound like a sigh through hollow bamboo. You lie back, eyes half-lidded, listening to that breath. It's hypnotic, steady. It tells you more than your eyes ever could. In this world, the sea is not background noise. It's the medium, the message, the teacher, your guide, a stern-faced man with hair like reef coral and a voice like wet stone sits in the bow. He doesn't shout directions. Instead, he closes his eyes and rests his palms lightly on the gunwales. His knees bend slightly, absorbing the water's undulations. He's not just sitting, he's listening through his body. The swell has direction, tempo, even intent. He's reading it like a page. You try to mimic him. Your hands press against the smooth wood. Your calves tense slightly with each dip of the wave. But it all feels like chaos, like trying to read Braille while someone shakes the table. Still, the guide nods approvingly. The sea doesn't speak to your ears, he mutters. It speaks to your bones. The ancestors called this talapa, the lightning of the sea. A kind of underwater glow or pulse that radiates outward from islands. Western science still debates if it's real or myth, but Polynesian voyagers swear by it. Some claim they can see this energy shimmer under certain moonless conditions. Others say it's not about seeing. It's about feeling the subtle, directional energy that the ocean emits. You're not quite sure which version you believe, but your skin tingles a little more than usual. Above you, the stars wheel silently. You spot Orion. Well, the Polynesians had another name, Ka-he-he-o na keiki, the line of children. Their entire sky was mapped not by Western constellations, but by sea roads, celestial highways etched into family memory. These weren't just star groups. They were calendars, GPS markers, even time machines. Your guide gestures upward. That one is Te Waka o Tamarareti, he says, pointing to what you know as the Milky Way. The canoe of the gods. If it leans north tonight, we sail east. If it glides low, we wait. And indeed, it does tilt just slightly toward the left, so you move. silently. The paddles dip and pull in unison. There's no splash, no talking, just a rhythm. You swear the canoe isn't being steered, it's being invited. Now and then, the guide breaks the silence to whisper a chant. It's melodic, low, and ancient. You don't understand the words, but you feel their weight. The chant is a mnemonic, an oral map, encoding thousands of miles of ocean star alignments, migratory birds, and swell directions. Every syllable carries meaning. Every pause is a course correction. Historians still argue whether Polynesians made these voyages on purpose or simply drifted with the currents. Some claim they were accidental settlers, lucky raft survivors. But when you're here, inside this ancient practice, you can't help but scoff. Nothing about this feels accidental. The ocean is too precise. The chants too detailed. The guide too calm. Just as you start to feel drowsy, a shift, a soft tilt in the boat's belly. You glance at your guide. He smiles without opening his eyes. Underwater reef. Long one. Maybe 15 miles out. You'll feel it start to fade in 10 minutes. You blink. Reef. There's no land in sight. No smell of earth. No birds. Just the same wide expanse of black sea and silver sky. But sure enough, 10 minutes later, the rhythm of the swell smooths ever so slightly. The bounce becomes a roll. The boat glides easier, and something in your spine relaxes, not because your muscles told it to, but because the sea let go. You're not reading the ocean, it's reading you. You don't need a map anymore. You just lie there blinking at the sky, while your fingers start tracing lines between stars without realizing it. The canoe is still rocking gently, as if it too is mapping the heavens. Every sway, a silent calculation. Every pause, a question whispered into the wind. Your guide raises a hand without looking. Star compass, he murmurs, and you squint up again. You've heard of it. A method so elegant, it sounds like a bedtime story. In the minds of ancient navigators, the night sky was carved into precise compass points, rising and setting stars aligned perfectly with directions. Want to go due east? Watch where that star peaks up. West. Wait for the Pleiades to touch the water. It's not myth. It's mnemonic astronomy. And here's the kicker. They didn't draw any of this. There were no parchment scrolls tucked into the canoe. No diagrams. The compass wasn't ink. It was embedded in memory, locked into chance dances and songlines passed from teacher to student again and again, until your brain became a star chart. You're trying to remember a grocery list back home, and these people memorized an entire ocean. The key to this mental compass. You don't look at the stars. You feel where they rise and set. Each one has a home on the horizon. These points are divided into houses of the star compass, about 32 in total, like a cardinal rose that wraps around your entire world. Right now, your guide says you're tracking the setting of Aldebaran, and he's judging the canoe's angle by how it falls into a house just above the right outrigger. You can't see that house, but he can, in his head. And here's a detail that'll make your modern mind spiral a little. These navigators didn't even think the canoe was moving. Not really. In the mental model of Polynesian wayfinding, you stand still. The stars move. The islands slide beneath the sea toward you. Imagine watching the world spin past you while you remain motionless, eyes half-lidded, humming a lullaby to the Milky Way. Let the island come, your guide tells you. Don't chase it. The night deepens. Stars fade into streaks as your eyes grow heavier, but you're still tracing patterns. Like a toddler with connect the dots. A quirky tidbit. Some Pacific cultures used star sticks, literally wooden guides strung with shells that marked the angles between certain stars and horizon points. The sticks weren't navigational charts in the Western sense. They were more like training wheels for the imagination. The real navigation happened in your head and your skin. You try one last time to follow a full arc. Sirius rises over your left shoulder, crosses the center of the sky in 4 slow hours, and kisses the sea behind your right heel. That's your east-west trajectory. It's oddly satisfying, like scratching an itch you didn't know you had. Beneath you, the canoe adjusts again so slight it could be a dream. Your guide hums a new chant slower this time. The rhythm changes. You're falling into something deeper, like the tides pulling your thoughts into rhythm. Historians still puzzle over how accurate these navigators really were. Modern experiments with traditional vaca have shown they could hit islands hundreds of miles away with terrifying precision, often within a radius of 5 to 10 nautical miles. Some scholars remain skeptical, attributing the success to redundancy sailing in fleets, guessing luck. Others argue that a modern bias clouds our vision. We can't imagine memorizing oceans because we rely on machines to think for us. But there's no GPS out here. Just stars, salt, skin, and chance. Your guide opens one eye and smirks. Tomorrow you trace it all again. Sunrise stars. Midday swells afternoon clouds. He leans closer and taps your forehead. Then you dream it. You want to ask what he means, but you already know. In your half-sleep, constellations flicker behind your eyes. Your legs twitch to phantom waves. Your hands shift with invisible currents. The star compass has started to imprint, and that's when it clicks. The stars are more than lights. They're time. They rise, fall, repeat, predict. Each appearance marks a position. Each disappearance says you're getting closer. And the genius, it's the overlap. You don't rely on one clue. You cross-reference a bird's flight, a wave's slap, a star's tilt. 3 signs make truth. Suddenly, that mental compass feels less like a fantasy and more like a software upgrade. You're not lost. You're just learning a new operating system. As the breeze shifts, you smell a faint note, sugarcane smoke, coconut husk. Maybe it's a phantom scent carried by memory. Or maybe it means something more. You glance at your guide, but he's already smiling. Eddie, another sign, he says. You'll learn. And you believe him. You sit up slowly, the woven mat creasing beneath your thighs, and gaze upward. The sky is even darker now, ink black behind the stars, and the canoe cuts through the sea like it's slicing a sheet of silk. Your guide nods at the sky again. You see that cluster. Not the bright one over there like a bird's footprint. That's Matari Nia. When it rises at sunset, the season of abundance begins. You squint. It looks like a smudge. But sure enough, once he says it, you can't unsee it. A footprint. The ancestors didn't just name stars, they mapped seasons onto them. Entire calendars hung in the sky, no stone circles or written dates, just constellations with meanings that changed with their position. You feel like a child being told the moon isn't just a rock, but a clock. Some islands called these celestial markers the islands in the sky. Every voyage began by memorizing their positions, not just which stars, but when and where they rose. A kind of multi-dimensional chess played with burning gas and human intuition. Your brain hurts a little just thinking about it, but your guide, he smiles, this is the part you sing, and so begins a chant, half spoken, half sung. You don't understand the words, but you recognize the rhythm. The names of stars blend with directions, seasons, foods, and offerings. It's a voyage wrapped in melody. He isn't reciting a list, he's reenacting a route. Every stop, every landmark, every sky shift. You realize he's building a memory palace with stars for furniture. It sounds poetic, but it's actually pragmatic. These chants were designed to be memorized. Rhythm helps retention. Repetition builds instinct. The melody is sticky, like a jingle you can't forget. And the structure, pure genius. It matches the order of stars you'd see on a journey. It's less Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and more Excel spreadsheet Ocean Edition. Quirky detail. Some wayfinders would walk barefoot across hot coals or place sharp shells in their path to anchor a chant in physical sensation. Pain repetition and emotion, biological highlighters for memory. You hum along now. Badly. But your lips move and your body sways without your permission. The wind shifts, the stars dip, and your guide tilts his head. Turn your ear, he says. Now listen. You frown at first. All you hear is wind. But then, something else. A faint rhythm, like oars far off, like a pulse in the ocean itself. Not sound. Pattern. The swells are changing. You feel it in your chest. That slight lift and pause like a question mark made of water. And that's when he tells you this is the moment when the real navigators began to trust the sea. Not when the stars were clear, not when the breeze was right, but when the ocean started to speak in rhythm. You lie back again, eyes open, knees bent. This is how they did it. Not with ink, but instinct. Not with math, but music. You hear stories of how navigators trained for decades, memorizing dozens of constellations, hundreds of star paths. They learned how to detect changes in ocean swell direction by lying still for hours, sometimes with eyes blindfolded, until they could recognize each wave family by feel alone. One swell from the northeast, another bouncing back from a reef, a third overlaid whispering from a faraway atoll. Each had a name, a personality, a tone. Historians still argue how much of this is real and how much is exaggerated. Some oceanographers swear it's impossible to detect multiple swells that subtly, but navigators insist it's not only possible, it's crucial. One said it best. You can't teach the ocean, but you can learn its song. You think about that. Lying there, breathing with the canoe, following stars you barely understand, humming chants in a language not your own. And slowly, very slowly, something opens in you. A small door, a quiet click. This isn't survival. This is communion. The ocean isn't a threat. It's a partner. The sky isn't a map. It's a conversation. You're not lost. You're just listening. You close your eyes for a moment. Maybe more. The chant still loops softly beside you. Your fingers still trace invisible lines. The stars continue their silent arc across the heavens, and you start to feel its real, unmistakable orientation. Not north, not longitude, not even island, just here. You don't wake up so much as drift upward from that half-dreaming place, the kind where stars blur into memories and your body forgets it's supposed to be solid. The sky's a touch paler now, still a deep indigo, but the kind that hints at morning far away behind the Earth's shoulder. Your guide hasn't moved. His hands are still resting on the canoe's rim. But now he says something unexpected. Knees. You blink at him to feel the swells. You use your knees. It sounds absurd. You've heard of reading the wind, reading the stars, but knees. Still, you shuffle forward, closer to the vaca's belly, and kneel like he does. At first, all you feel is soreness. The wooden planks press into your shins, the salt air tightens your skin. But then after a few minutes, you notice it. The tiniest upward pressure. Then a drop. Then a second lift shorter. Then a pause. Like footsteps underwater. These are wave trains, he says. One from the northeast, a second from the south. Which means, he waits. You try to answer. You don't know what to say. But then something clicks. The two swells, one is longer, more forceful. The canoe tilts into it more deeply. That one must be coming from farther away. Maybe from open sea. That one's older, you whisper. That swell's been traveling a long time. He smiles. You're beginning. This isn't romanticized poetry. This is hard data collected by knees and calves and spines. Polynesian navigators learned to read the interaction between multiple swells the way you'd read handwriting. Some learned it as children, balancing on logs or lying flat on the decks of tied-up canoes in harbor. Others were thrown straight into stormy voyages and expected to listen with their bones. Quirky fact. Some elders believed that a true navigator should be able to tell you which island a swell originated from just by how it felt through their joints. It sounds outrageous until you try it, because once you settle into this posture, knees planted back, loose hands resting, it begins to make a strange kind of sense. You're not identifying waves. You're inhabiting them. Your guide nods toward the horizon. That's Ho'olua, the trade swell, constant, reliable, like your grandmother's stories. He gestures again slightly to the left. That one, Naleo. Whisper swell, trickster. You're already assigning personalities. It's like learning the moods of people at a party. One loud, one sneaky, one that doesn't show up until dessert. The wind picks up slightly cool against your cheeks. Not cold, just enough to tug your hair, to remind you the day is stirring. You ask a question. What if you're wrong? He shrugs. Then you keep sailing. But what if you miss the island entirely? He taps his temple. That's why we sail with ghosts. And you feel them then. Not in a spooky way. Just in the deep sense that you're not alone. Every canoe carries the memory of hundreds, thousands of journeys before it. Each correction, each disaster, each sweet landfall after weeks at sea, all stored in chants, gestures, stories, nothing written, everything remembered. Historians still debate whether Polynesians really could cross thousands of kilometers with such accuracy. There are theories about drift voyages, lucky landings, and island hopping gone wrong. Some even argue that the whole swell reading thing is exaggerated folklore, a romantic fiction, to patch gaps in academic understanding. But your knees tell you otherwise, because now, after just an hour of stillness, you feel something shift. A long, slow curve. The swell bends subtly, but enough that your weight shifts forward. Island shadow, says your guide. You jerk your head up. What? Reef beneath the sea. Breaks the swell. It curves around, like wind around a cliff. But you can't see anything. He just smiles. Land is coming, and it hits you. These navigators didn't see islands appear on the horizon. They felt them arrive hours before, like animals sniffing rain, like trees bracing for wind. They didn't wait for proof. They believed their knees. You kneel deeper. You let your body go slack, and let the boat become your nervous system. Every tremor, every tilt, every ghost touch of swell speaks to you. And though you can't explain it, you begin to understand, blinking out like tired lanterns. You blink too. Your knees ache, your back protests, but your mind feels oddly clear. Your guide turns to you. Now we teach without words. You expect another riddle, maybe a chant. Instead, he scoops a handful of wet sand from a small gourd tied to the side of the canoe and pours it gently across the deck between you. Then he draws a line with his thumb. This is our direction, east. He marks another line crossing it. These are the swell patterns. This is what you felt. Then, without speaking, he begins drawing tiny dots and arcs into the sand. Stars, horizon points, swell curves. You watch fascinated as the story of the night's voyage replays itself in miniature right before you. Only now you understand more of the language. The sand becomes a moving map. The swirls are wave systems. The dots are rising stars. The spacing, that's how far you've traveled. The curves, that's where the wind shifted. He doesn't explain. He expects you to feel it. That's how wayfinding is passed on, not by data, but by pattern. Not instruction, but intimacy. Teaching in this world isn't an academic exchange. It's more like sharing a song until the other person hums it without realizing. Quirky detail. Some traditional navigators would use shells or coral bits placed in sand to represent stars or swells. And others, especially in the Marshall Islands, created stick charts, complex lattices of coconut fiber, bent to indicate wave behavior near islands. Westerners thought they were toys. They weren't. They were libraries. You try drawing one yourself in the sand. It's clumsy. Your curves are too shallow. Your stars are too close together. But your guide doesn't laugh. He nods. The ocean has patience. It occurs to you then, this is how knowledge survives without paper. Not because it's shouted, but because it's repeated. Generational memory. A teacher kneels beside a student on a boat before dawn and draws shapes in sand. That's how you move an entire civilization across an ocean. Historians still marvel at how Polynesians settled one of the largest and most remote regions on Earth, millions of square kilometers, hundreds of islands, some barely dots in the sea. How did they find them? Some scholars lean on language comparisons, radiocarbon dating, and genetic markers. Others argue over the timeline. Was it gradual expansion? A few grand leaps? But sitting here, sand between your fingers, it feels simpler. They followed the stars. They trusted their knees. They taught their children by touch. Your guide wipes the sand clean and begins again. This time, he lets you draw the first line. You hesitate, Then mark the swell direction, the eastern path of the canoe, a star you remember watching set behind your shoulder. It's not perfect, but you remember it. And that's the whole point. You glance back at the horizon. That faint shift in the swell you felt earlier, it's stronger now. The canoe lifts more on the left. The curve is more pronounced. And then you catch it. A bird. Just one. A slim, black dot in the lightning sky. Wings bent like a boomerang. Silent. Alone. But flying confidently in a single direction. Your guide spots it too. Land bird, he says. Naughty turn. Only flies this far if it's heading home. And just like that, you're part of a bigger network. Stars. Swells. Sand drawings. Now, birds. He gives you a new rule. If you see two birds circling and returning, the island is very close. If you see them fly out and don't return, they're scouting for landfall. You nod slowly. It's like the sky is giving you clues, if only you learn its language. You're quiet for a long time after that. Not because there's nothing to say, but because silence feels more respectful. Like you're in a sacred classroom, and the ocean is still mid-lecture. The canoe continues to slide forward. The swell still curves. The sky grows a bit brighter. And now the sand in your lap is warm. You draw one last line in it unprompted. It's crooked, a little wobbly, but it's yours. By now, the swell has become your lullaby. You feel it more than hear it. Those slow, patient pulses, lifting the canoe like breath lifts a sleeping chest. You lean into them instinctively, like you're not on a boat at all, but cradled in something ancient, something that remembers you. You close your eyes for a moment, just a moment. Then you open them, startled, because your guide has covered your face with a thin, woven cloth. Not tightly, just enough to block your sight. Eyes off, he murmurs. You don't need them now. At first, you resist the darkness. Your modern instincts protest. No screens, no visuals. How will you know anything? But then you breathe. Just breathe. And the world doesn't go silent. It deepens. Without your eyes, you feel the wind more clearly. The way it shifts across your scalp. The way it dips toward your right shoulder. You feel the cool air wrapping around your fingers. And beneath you, a subtle tremble, like fingers tapping against the hull. Not random, repeating, measured. Your knees, once numb, now buzz with information. A slow roll, then a sharper slap, then stillness, then it loops again. You begin to map it. It's like being underwater, but with skin instead of lungs. You're no longer navigating by sight. You're navigating by shape. This is what the masters trained for. They'd sail blindfolded for hours, sometimes lying prone chests against wood foreheads pressed to the deck, learning the fingerprint of each swell. Because here's the quirky part. Each island creates its own echo. Waves bend around reefs. Currents reflect off underwater ridges. These aren't theories, they're tactile truths. Your guide whispers, "We're in the island's shadow now." You don't ask how he knows. You feel it. The swell has changed again. The dominant pulse is slower now. The canoe doesn't just ride, it slides, like it's being pulled into something soft. Cradled, still blindfolded, you try to imagine the shape of the sea beneath you. Not flat, not even. It's a three-dimensional story. If you could reach down, you think you could trace the underwater slope of an island's flank. You could paint it with your fingers. Historians still debate whether this island shadow is real. Some call it a myth. Others have begun running oceanographic models, discovering to their amazement that wave refraction does shift subtly near land masses. Just not enough for instruments to notice. But bone skin knees, maybe that's what makes it all possible. A few schools in the Pacific are bringing this art back, teaching it in dry labs, projecting star maps on ceilings. But your guide says something you won't forget. Charts won't teach you to trust your stomach. You take the cloth off your face. The light has changed. The stars are fading fast now. But the sea, it's still talking. You realize you haven't spoken in maybe half an hour. You haven't needed to. You've been in dialogue with the ocean. You look at your guide. He nods barely. You've passed the first silence. That's what they call it, the first silence. The moment you no longer rely on what you see or even what you hear. When your body becomes antenna tuning fork seismograph. When you stop asking questions and start listening to what the sea was always telling you. You look down at your own hands, resting quietly on the side of the canoe. They look different now, calmer, as if they too are remembering something ancient. The canoe shifts slightly to starboard, not much, but enough. Point of deflection, your guide mutters. You nod as if you understand. You almost do. He says it's where the swell curls around the edge of a submerged reef, part of the island's signature. Each island has a different one, different echo, different angle of curve. You wonder how many of these fingerprints the old navigators carried in their heads, 10, 20, 100. One story says a single navigator could recite the feel of every island from Tahiti to the Marshalls 2,000 miles just by the motion of the sea under his chest. Others say that's just legend. But here blindfolded and breathing with the boat legend feels like the wrong word. Feels more like memory. The kind that doesn't live in your head. It lives in your body. Your hands are damp now, not with seawater, but with morning. The air has changed again. Thicker, warmer, tinged with the faintest scent of wet stone and green. You're not imagining it. You know what that smell means. Somewhere not far ahead is land, but still there is no sign of it. Not on the horizon, not in the clouds. Just a lingering sweetness in the air and a curious quiet in the bird song that has replaced the stars. Your guide lifts a finger without looking. Look down. Not up. You lean forward, scanning the water's surface. At first, it looks like water. Ordinary, gently rolling blue to gray water. But then you notice it, a bobbing strip of wood, no larger than your forearm. Weathered smooth, sun-bleached. It's drifting lazily along, not with the swell, but with a current. And suddenly, you remember what he told you last night. Driftwood is a breadcrumb, an invitation. Land debris, he confirms. Canoe builders throw their waste in the river. It comes here. Your eyes scan harder. Now, you see it more debris. A coconut husk. A torn frond. All of it too fresh to have floated for long. All of it heading the same way you are. It's not just debris. It's a trail. Polynesian navigators use this too. Not instead of stars, but with them. They read the world like overlapping books. Stars, swells, smells, currents, clouds, birds, flotsam. All cross-checked, like building a case in court. You weren't convinced by one clue, you wanted 7. and the birds they're circling now. That same black knotty tern from before has picked up a friend, and the two are now wheeling in tight arcs above the ocean. They're hunting, your guide says. They're done traveling. That means we're close. You want to shout, to point, to scan the horizon again. But your guide raises a hand. Still too soon. Instead, he gestures downward. To the water again. This time, you notice the color. It's not uniform anymore. There's a slight lightening, a pale turquoise whisper beneath the deeper blue, and the pattern of waves less smooth, more interrupted, like something beneath is breaking their rhythm. That's when he says it. The color tells us we're above a shelf. Shallow water, no GPS, no sonar. Just eyeballs and inherited wisdom. You lean over the side and trail your fingers again. The water does feel different, warmer, softer somehow. Your fingers can't say why, but your spine agrees. Then above you, a sudden shadow, a thick, puffy cloud darker underneath, drifting in from the east. Your guide nods again. Island cloud. It parks above warm land in the morning. Too heavy to move fast. And now you start laughing. You can't help it. You've been taught to look at maps, to check apps, to trust screens. But here, in the middle of the ocean, a cloud is giving you directions. Quirky fact. In some traditions, navigators were trained to identify specific shapes of island clouds. Flatter over atolls, taller over volcanic islands, rounder when the land was still far pointed when close. It sounds like wizardry until you see it yourself. And there it is again, the feeling. That calm hum in your ribs. That subtle skip in the swell. That taste of green in the air. You're close. Historians still debate how much of this environmental reading was intentional. How much was just myth? Some argue these techniques were exaggerated post-contact to impress colonizers. Others say it's all too anecdotal, too unscientific. But you don't care, because science or not, you feel oriented. The birds return again. This time, they're flying straight parallel to your course. Low, intentional. You nod, they're leading. Your guide gives no reaction, but he doesn't correct you. That silence, that's a passing of the torch. You're not the guest anymore. You're beginning to navigate, and just as the sky turns golden behind you, you glimpse it, barely just for a second. A sliver of green, so faint you'd miss it if you blinked. But it's there, land. You felt it long before you saw it. Land. But not the way you're used to seeing it. There's no dramatic cliff rising from the sea, no palm trees silhouetted like a movie poster. Just a suggestion, an almost shadow, a lump of green-gray where sky and ocean blur. But to you, it might as well be a lighthouse. You lean forward, eyes squinting, heart drumming. Then your guide taps your shoulder once. You freeze. He says only, "Let your mind catch up." And that's when you realize something unexpected. Your body arrived long before your thoughts did. Your knees had already known. Your skin had whispered it hours ago. Even your nose had tipped you off. Your brain is just late. And maybe that's the point. Polynesian navigation isn't just about movement through space. It's also about syncing your internal rhythm to the world's. That's how it worked for the masters. They didn't use maps. They became the map. You close your eyes again, not to block the view, but to see better. In your mind, you replay the journey. Not just the last few hours, but the whole thing. The stars at dusk, the chants, the swells under your knees, the birds circling, the cloud thickening, the scent of wet green, and then something extraordinary happens. You feel the entire route unfold inside you, as if someone rolled out a scroll across your rib cage. The angles, the markers, the sensations, they're still there, alive, recorded. You've just built your own mind map. That's how they did it. For centuries. No compasses, no ink. Just this memorized star positions, intersecting swell directions, land signals layered like a dream, and above all, practice a lifetime of running the simulation in your head. Your guide finally breaks the silence. That's the island of Nuku. Small, but if you miss it, you hit nothing for 6 days. He says it like he's telling you where the coffee shop is. You nod. We didn't miss. No, he says. You didn't. A smile tugs at the corner of his mouth. Historians still debate whether Polynesian wayfinding was this precise. Some claim oral tradition inflated their accuracy. Others cite Western skepticism, claiming no culture without sextants could hit specks of land with regularity. But records show traditional navigators guiding fleets across thousands of kilometers with uncanny consistency. Modern revivals, like those of the Hokulea voyages, have proven it's not just possible, it's repeatable, and you're living proof. The canoe glides forward, not fast, just steady. You pass a clump of seaweed bobbing beside the hull. Another sign, you hear distant breakers low muffled. A hush beneath the wind. That's the reef's voice. You glance at the sky. Only a few stars remain, Venus defiantly bright and a pale smudge where Orion used to be. The sky's shifting to daylight. The world is preparing for the ordinary, but not you. You felt something irreversibly old tonight. Not just history, but memory. Not just navigation, but relationship, because that's what this was. You didn't sail to land. You invited it to meet you. The swell changes again, a final tilt. Shallow water. You could leap out now and feel the seafloor if you tried. But you don't. You stay still, breathing, letting the island arrive in full. Your guide finally gives you the words you've been waiting for. You brought us home. You blink. I what? You read the signs. You kept the chant. You felt the ocean. He shrugs. You're not finished learning. But the sea doesn't lie. It says you're ready to remember more. You sit with that. You let the silence stretch. The boat bumps gently against something, a piece of reef. The island is real now, no longer myth. Just mossy rock and morning mist. And you feel taller, quieter, like someone added weight to your spirit, but in a good way. It's not over. It's just the first full circuit. Now you start again. As the morning light bathes the island's edge, you begin to see the canoe, not just as a vessel, but as an extension of yourself, an ancient instrument tuned to the ocean's whispers. Every timber and lash speaks a language older than any book, older than stone monuments, older even than the oldest known star charts. You realize you stopped thinking of the canoe as a thing you ride and started sensing it as a living being, almost a partner in this voyage. Its gentle creaks are like words, its subtle shifts like breaths. Together you navigate an invisible world, one encoded in water, wind, and sky. This is the canoe as compass. The art of wayfinding turns the canoe into a multi-sensory instrument, amplifying your ability to read the ocean. It's not just a boat. It's a finely tuned sensor array. Every lashing, Every joint flexes under your touch. The outrigger's slight tilt sends signals you don't consciously process, but which settle deep in your gut. Your guide explains. You learn to feel direction. It's not about holding a stick or reading numbers. It's about your body sensing the environment. You try to articulate it to yourself. You don't turn the canoe turns you. The boat's responses tell you where you are, how you're oriented. The waves pressing under your knees transmit ocean currents. The wind brushing your face confirms what the stars say. It's a complex feedback loop. You and the canoe are one. Quirky tidbit. Some navigators believed that canoes were almost alive, carrying the spirits of ancestors and the wisdom of the sea. They treated their vessels with reverence, speaking to them and offering prayers for safe passage. You lean on the edge of the canoe, staring down into the translucent water, spotting shapes below a flash of a reef shark's fin. A scattering of colorful fish darting between coral. The water feels like glass. You think about how this trust in the canoe's subtle language required generations of experience. A single false reading could mean missing an island by hundreds of miles. Historians still argue whether this intimate relationship between navigator and canoe was widespread or limited to elite experts. Some say it's a romantic notion. Others prove its reality through modern reenactments and ethnographic studies. You wonder, watching the ripples, if you'll ever truly understand that dance between flesh and wood, sea, and sky. The canoe shifts again gently, guiding you toward a lagoon that appears like a jewel embedded in the coastline. You breathe deeply, feeling the culmination of your journey in your bones. Your guide's voice breaks the silence. The canoe does not steer you wrong. You smile, feeling the profound truth of that. And you know from here, every journey will be different, but the connection remains the same. The sun climbs higher, casting shimmering light across the lagoon as you settle into a rhythm between breath and paddle. The ocean's voice has softened here, replaced by the gentle slap of water against coral reefs and the distant calls of seabirds nesting in the palms. You sit quietly, letting the stillness wrap around you like a warm cloak. Your mind drifts back to the chants, the endless syllables that guided you through the darkness and the waves. They weren't just tools, they were stories, prayers, connections to ancestors who'd sailed these same waters without the luxuries of modern instruments. Your guide leans close and murmurs the memory palace. You look puzzled, so he elaborates. The chants, the star compass, the swell reading, they're part of a vast mental structure. Like a palace where each room holds a piece of knowledge. You don't just recite, you enter it. You imagine this palace, a vast, invisible mansion, stretching across the ocean's expanse. Each corridor, lined with stars, each door, opening to a wave pattern, every window framing a distant island. Navigators live here, moving through this mental landscape to find their way. Quirky fact, some Polynesian navigators reportedly memorize multiple routes each, with unique chants and tactile cues like a seasoned traveler, carrying dozens of mental maps in their heads. The oral tradition was their GPS, hard-coded into song and story. Historians still debate the exact structure of this memory palace. Was it uniform across cultures? Did it rely more on oral poetry or physical gestures? There's no consensus, only fascinating fragments from anthropologists and surviving elders. You try to build your own palace. You trace the layout with your finger on the canoe's wood, the starry halls, the wave-swept courtyards, the island rooms flickering in your imagination. It feels dizzying, but comforting, like learning a new language, one word at a time. Your guide's voice breaks through your reverie. Soon, you'll dream in this palace. It's where real navigation happens. Dream navigation. You laugh softly thinking about how absurd it sounds, but as you look at the endless sea and sky, you realize it might be the most natural thing in the world. The day stretches on the lagoon, gleaming like polished jade beneath the sun. You feel yourself sinking deeper into this new way of thinking, no longer just a visitor, but a participant in an ancient tradition. The canoe rocks gently beneath you, a steady heartbeat syncing with your own. And as the light filters through palm fronds, you understand this memory palace is not just a tool for survival. It's a home. You lean back, letting the warm sun seep into your bones as the gentle breeze carries stories from the land. Your guide's gaze turns distant, almost reverent, and he speaks quietly. Historians still argue whether the first Polynesian voyages were accidental driftings or intentional expeditions. But out here, with the ocean in your hands and the stars above in tension, feels undeniable. You think about that debate. Some say those early sailors simply got caught in currents and were lucky to find islands. Others insist these were purposeful journeys with complex knowledge encoded in chants and practiced skills passed down generations. You don't need to choose sides. Tonight, you've felt the precision, the confidence, the deep-rooted tradition that supports those claims. The ocean holds secrets older than any written record. It was their library and their road, their challenge and their companion. Your guide's voice softens. They sailed with purpose, with trust, with faith in their bodies and the world. You imagine the earliest navigators stepping into canoes carved from great trees, feeling the pulse of the ocean for the first time. No GPS, no compass, just stars, swells, and a will to discover. Quirky detail. Some oral traditions recount navigators using a method called etak, where they mentally fix an island as a reference point and ride the moving stars around it, effectively making the stars and ocean currents dance in their minds as a way to calculate position. You attempt to picture this mental trick, an island standing still while the world spins and flows around it. It's a mind-bending concept that makes you appreciate the sophistication of Polynesian wayfinding. Historians still debate the origins of etak, with some suggesting it developed independently, while others believe it was influenced by other seafaring cultures. Regardless, it represents an incredible fusion of observation, memory, and imagination. The sun dips lower, painting the sky in shades of coral and gold. You feel the day's journey settle into your muscles and your mind. You're part of something vast, an unbroken chain of explorers who dared to trust the ocean's whisper and the stars' guidance. Your guide nods toward the horizon, where the sky and sea blur in soft pastels. Tomorrow, you sail again. But tonight, you rest in the knowledge you've gained. You close your eyes, letting the gentle rocking of the canoe lull you toward sleep, your body and mind embracing a tradition that has survived millennia. The night arrives again, but this time it feels different, quieter, softer, more intimate. You wake from a light sleep to find your guide already awake, eyes tracing patterns in the sky, like a poet reading a well-worn verse. No words, just silent understanding. You join him, lifting your gaze to the stars, that now feel like old friends rather than distant lights. You start noticing details that escaped you before the faint glow of Matariki, the subtle tilt of Scorpius, the way the Milky Way arcs like a cosmic bridge. Your guide breaks the silence, voice gentle. This is when celestial dead reckoning begins. You frown, asking silently what's dead reckoning. He explains, it's the art of tracking your movement through the ocean, using stars and swells without fixed landmarks. When the sky changes, you adjust your course. You feel the challenge of this: no instruments, no numbers. Only intuition and memory guiding every movement. You imagine the navigators of old standing in canoes on starlit nights, eyes trained to catch the slightest shift in a star's angle, the subtlest change in wave rhythm. Their bodies were sextants, their minds charts. Quirky detail. Some wayfinders claimed to determine their latitude by observing the height of certain stars at their zenith, without tools, just practice and a finely tuned eye. Historians still argue the extent of this practice, with some skeptical of how precise it could be without instruments, while others point to modern voyages replicating these techniques with astonishing accuracy. You feel a rush of respect for these navigators who trusted their senses and memory to cross vast unknowns. The ocean hums beneath you, a living pulse steady and sure. You close your eyes and feel the canoe tilt subtly, a silent signal to adjust. You follow instinctively, as if the boat has become your partner in a cosmic dance. Your guide smiles, sensing your growing confidence. You're becoming one with the sea and stars. The night deepens. The stars wheel overhead, their stories unfolding like an ancient lullaby. You're no longer a novice, but a participant in a tradition older than history itself. And with every breath, every gentle swell, you find yourself drawn deeper into the rhythm of this timeless voyage. You feel it, the strange mental trick called itak, like a slow ripple spreading through your thoughts. Your guide's voice is calm but firm as he explains. You fix your mind on an island, not yourself moving, but the island. You watch the stars move around that point. It's a way to measure progress without instruments. You try to imagine it. The island, a still point in your mental sky, while the vast ocean and stars swirl past like a cosmic carousel. It's dizzying surreal, a mental map where movement is relative, a dance of perception and memory. Quirky detail. Some Polynesian navigators would use itak to calculate position in the middle of the Pacific by shifting their reference island in their mind's eye as the stars moved, effectively sliding their map beneath them to stay on course. Historians still debate the origins and mechanics of itak, questioning whether it developed independently or was influenced by Asian navigational techniques. The real magic lies in how it reflects a profound human ability to reimagine space and movement. You practice this mental dance, imagining islands fixed in place as the stars and ocean shift. Your thoughts spiral like a slow tide, expanding and contracting. Suddenly, you realize how much of this navigation depends on trust. Trust in your body. Trust in your memory. Trust in the invisible forces weaving the ocean and sky. Then the sky clouds over a thick blanket of gray, rolling in fast. The stars disappear. Your guide doesn't panic. He closes his eyes and rests his hands on the boat's edges. You've learned the next test, he says softly. When the sky disappears, you don't stop. You listen. You close your eyes, feeling the boat sway beneath you, the ocean's voice rising like a song you barely remember. It's fog storms and overcast nights that separate the masters from the novices. And tonight, you begin to understand what it means to navigate blind. The gray haze thickens, swallowing the sky and blurring the horizon into one endless gray soup. You open your eyes, but the stars you've come to rely on are gone. The ocean looks the same, in all directions. No cues, no clues. Your heartbeat quickens, a little panic bubbling up. But your guide is calm, serene even. When the sky disappears, the sea becomes your only map. You sink back onto the mat, letting your hands rest lightly on the canoe's edge. Your knees still remember the swell's language. Your skin, the rhythm of the waves. Your guide teaches you the rhythm of the ocean. 3 overlapping swells each with its own story. One steady and deep from the trade winds, another shorter from a distant reef, and a third almost imperceptible rolling in from the horizon. You feel these poles sensing how they interact, how one bends around an underwater ridge, how another shortens near an island shore. You're learning to read the sea like Braille. Quirky detail. Some navigators trained blindfolded for weeks to hone this skill, often sleeping on the floor of the canoe during voyages to keep their bodies connected to the boat's movements. Historians still debate the veracity of these accounts, but contemporary voyagers report similar experiences during recreations of traditional crossings. The clouds hang heavy, and the ocean hums a deep, constant note. Your guide's voice is a whisper. You trust the sea, not the sky. Your body is your compass. You close your eyes and feel the canoe tilt gently, left then right. You adjust your balance, matching the movement instinctively. You sense time, stretching minutes, blending into hours. The world shrinks to this dance man boat and ocean. The storm may rage, but you are tethered to the rhythm. You begin to understand the ancient courage it took to sail without sight, without certainty, trusting only your skin and your soul. The storm will pass, and you will still be sailing. The storm's fury slowly fades. Clouds begin to break, revealing slivers of star-studded sky. The ocean's song softens, shifting from a roaring symphony to a gentle lullaby. You stretch muscles tired, but spirit awakened. This was no ordinary voyage. You've passed tests that only the bravest dared to face. Your guide smiles faintly. Now you arrive without seeing land. You squint toward the horizon. Still nothing. No shoreline, no silhouette, just endless water. But beneath your feet, the swell has changed again. Rolling softer, gentler, as if the sea itself is easing into a secret. And then it happens. The swell shifts once more, a subtle yet unmistakable change. Your body feels the pull. The canoe angles gently starboard. You hold your breath. It's coming, your guide whispers. Minutes later, a faint line of foam appears, where waves break on an unseen reef. The island isn't a shape on the horizon. It's a whisper in the water. You lean forward, feeling the swell's rhythm change again, more pronounced now, the ocean revealing its hidden edge. You smile, heart pounding softly. This moment, when land reveals itself without a single glance, is the true essence of Polynesian navigation. It's a communion between sailor and sea mind and muscle, sky and skin. You've done it. Your guide pats your shoulder. You've read the stars by touch. You close your eyes, breathing deeply, letting the experience sink into your bones. A lifetime of learning distilled into one moment. The canoe drifts gently into the lagoon's calm embrace. The stars fade as dawn blooms, and you at last rest. Now, as you settle into the soft quiet of this ancient harbor, let your mind drift. The ocean's breath slows. The stars fade. The swell becomes a gentle rocking cradle. Remember that with every night, with every journey, there is always a homecoming, sometimes invisible, sometimes beyond sight, but always felt deep within. Let your body relax, your mind quiet. You have traveled far, and now you can rest. Good night.